Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. The moment my husband turned on the camera, I knew there was no backing out. He stood there grinning, like a kid with a mischievous secret, while our cute donkey Jackson flicked his ears, completely unaware of what was about to happen. I had my doubts, a million of them, but somehow he convinced me that this was going to be fun, or at least entertaining. Now let me just say, this was not my idea. Not even close. If you had told me a week ago that I'd be standing in our backyard, getting ready to do something completely ridiculous with a cute donkey, I would have laughed in your face. But here I was, heart racing, questioning all my life choices while my husband adjusted the camera angle like a professional director. "You're gonna love this," he said, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Trust me." Trust. That's a strong word, especially when you're married to someone whose definition of fun usually involves some kind of wild, half-tea-though thought-out experiment. But I'll admit his enthusiasm is contagious. And Jackson, our four-legged troublemaker, just stood there with his big, curious eyes, probably wondering why three humans were acting so weird. I took a deep breath, trying to mentally prepare myself. "Are you sure this is safe?" I asked, eyeing both of them. My husband chuckled. "Absolutely. People are gonna love this." That part one didn't doubt. People love crazy things on the internet. And if there's one thing I've learned in our marriage, is that my husband has a knack for coming up with ideas that get people talking. Jackson let out a loud snort, as if he had an opinion on the whole situation. Maybe he knew something I didn't. Maybe he was warning me. But at this point there was no turning back. The camera was rolling, my husband was grinning, and I was standing there about to do something that would either make people laugh or question my sanity. And then, just as I took a step forward, something completely unexpected happened. Jackson twitched. My husband's face changed. And suddenly the entire plan took a turn that none of us saw coming. Jackson let out a sharp, unexpected bray that made me jump back. My husband, who had been so confident just moments ago, suddenly looked a little less sure of himself. The camera wobbled on its tripod as he steadied it with one hand, his eyes darting between me and our cute donkey. "Okay, that was different," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Jackson stomped his hoof, his ears flicking in every direction. I wasn't an expert in cute donkey behavior, but something about his energy had shifted. It wasn't fear exactly, but he was definitely reacting to something. And that something was making my stomach churn with unease. "You still want to do this?" my husband asked, though there was a tiny hint of hesitation in his voice. Now I looked at him, then at Jackson, then at the camera's little red recording light blinking steadily at us. The whole thing had started as a joke. A crazy idea, my husband swore would get a ton of views. But standing here, feeling the tension in the air, it didn't seem so funny anymore. "Remind me again why we're doing this?" I asked, crossing my arms, because he said, his grin returning though a little weaker. "This time people love watching this kind of stuff. It's harmless fun." Harmless, right? I wasn't sure about that anymore. Jackson let out another loud bray, this time tossing his head like he was trying to shake something off. My husband and I both took an instinctive step back. The cute donkey wasn't acting aggressive, but he wasn't acting normal either. He kept looking past us like something was behind us. I turned half, expecting to see someone or something standing there. But there was nothing. Just the old wooden fence that lined our backyard, the sun casting long eerie shadows across the grass. I swallowed hard. Maybe we should. Just before I could finish my sentence, Jackson did something that sent a chill straight down my spine. He suddenly stopped moving altogether, his body going stiff as a statue, his ears locked forward. He was staring at something neither my husband nor I could see. For the first time since we started filming, my husband went completely silent. No jokes, no reassuring words, just tense, breathless stillness. And in that moment I knew whatever was happening here wasn't just some silly internet stunt. Something was wrong. Jackson's whole body was rigid, like he was carved from stone. His breathing was slow, controlled, but his eyes were locked on something just beyond the fence. I felt a shiver creep up my spine. As I turned to my husband, his usual playfulness was gone. His hands rested tense on his as his jaw clenched. "Do you see anything?" I whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might break whatever strange moment we were caught in. He shook his head slowly. No, but Jackson does. And that was the part that unsettled me. The most animals have instincts. They react to things before humans even sense them. I'd read stories about dogs barking at unseen figures, or cats refusing to go into certain rooms, but a cute donkey, I'd never heard of that. Before I turned my eyes back to Jackson, his ears twitched, his nostrils flared. He wasn't just staring. He was waiting for something. Maybe it's a coyote, my husband murmured, or a raccoon. But the way he said it told me he didn't believe it. Neither did I. Jackson suddenly took a step forward, slow and deliberate. His hoof crunched against the dry grass. Then, without warning, he let out a sound unlike anything I had ever heard before. It wasn't a normal bray. It was deeper, almost like a warning. I grabbed my husband's arm, my pulse racing. Turn off the camera. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the button. What if? Then Jackson bolted not away from the fence, but toward it full speed. And that's when I saw it, a shadow, just for a second. A flicker of something behind the wooden slats. Something that shouldn't have been there. Jackson's hooves thundered across the yard, kicking up dust as he charged toward the fence. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to call out to stop him, but my throat felt tight, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. My husband grabbed my wrist, holding me back, his own breathing shallow. The camera was still rolling. Its little red light blinked steadily, capturing every second. Then, just as Jackson reached the fence, he skidded to a sudden stop. His whole body tensed, his head jerking back as if he had slammed into an invisible wall. He let out a sharp, startled bray, his ears flattening, his muscles trembled. But he didn't run. He just stood there frozen, staring at the exact spot where I had seen that shadow move. My husband finally broke the silence. What the hell is going on? I shook my head, unable to look away. Something's out there. He took a slow step forward, his phone in his hand, now as if the dim glow of its flashlight would somehow explain what Jackson already knew. The cute donkey let out a deep guttural sound, warning us, telling us to stay put. Then we heard it, a soft rustling barely there, like something shifting behind the fence. The wind wasn't blowing, the trees were still, but that sound, it was real. It was close. And then the worst part, a whisper, low, breathless. Right on the other side of the fence. I didn't hear words. Just the sound. Just the impossible knowledge that someone or something was there. Jackson backed away. My husband grabbed my hand, and the camera kept recording. The whisper sent a bolt of ice down my spine. My husband and I locked eyes, our breath shallow, neither of us daring to move. Jackson, usually the stubborn, fearless one, took another step back, his ears pinned tightly against his head. Whatever was behind that fence, he wanted no part of it. Then, just as suddenly as the whisper came, the night fell into complete silence. No crickets, no distant rustling of leaves, just an eerie, suffocating stillness. I gripped my husband's arm, my fingers digging into his sleeve. We need to go inside, I whispered. He nodded, but his eyes flicked to the camera, still rolling, still capturing everything. His hesitation was brief. He wasn't ready to stop filming. Not yet. Then the fence moved, not much, just the smallest shift, like something pressing against it from the other side. A single wooden plank creaked under the pressure. I felt my pulse hammer in my throat. My husband raised his phone's flashlight, angling it toward the gap between the slats. The beam flickered, casting thin streaks of light through the cracks. And then something moved, not an animal, not a person, just a shape, a shifting dark blur that melted into the night before we could fully process what we had seen. It was there, and then it wasn't. Jackson let out a sharp, almost panicked bray and bolted. He didn't stop this time. He ran straight across the yard, past the camera, disappearing toward the barn. Then the smell hit us. It was faint at first, but quickly grew stronger. Damp earth, rotting wood, a thick musty scent that didn't belong here. I gagged, covering my nose. My husband stepped back, his grip tightening around my hand. "We're done," he said, his voice low. "We're going inside." I didn't argue. I turned ready to move. And then from the other side of the fence something knocked 3 times. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. My husband dropped the flashlight. The knocks echoed through the stillness, sending my heart racing again. Knock, knock, knock. We stood frozen. unable to speak, unable to breathe. My husband's phone lay forgotten on the ground, its dim light flickering out. The darkness around us seemed to press in, as though the entire world was holding its breath. I turned slowly toward the fence, my feet rooted to the ground, a cold sweat breaking out across my skin. The air felt heavy, unnatural, like something wasn't quite right. And just when I thought I couldn't take another second, the fence creaked again. This time there was a clear, unmistakable shape, something shifting in the shadows. I felt my pulse skip. My husband stepped back, a slight tremor in his voice as he whispered, Is that a person?" I couldn't answer. My mind was racing, jumping to impossible conclusions. It was too big to be a person too long. Then the shape moved closer. Something pushed through the slats of the fence, slow, deliberate. I could make out the silhouette of something tall, unnatural. A figure that seemed to stretch and bend in ways it shouldn't get inside. I hissed, yanking my husband toward the back door of the house. But before we could move, the shape broke through. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything I could describe. All I knew was that whatever it was, it didn't belong here. It didn't belong anywhere. And then Jackson reappeared. Our cute donkey came charging back from the barn, his hooves thundering against the ground. But this time he wasn't running from fear. He was charging toward the fence, toward that thing. Jackson stopped just short of the figure, snorting and braying fiercely. He lowered his head, his body tense, as if he was protecting us from something unspeakable. In a flash, everything changed. The shape shuddered and seemed to dissolve. And for a moment I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. But then the air around the fence shifted, distorted, like a heat wave rising from the ground. And with that the figure was gone, just vanished. I stood there still, clutching my husband's arm, my mouth dry. The smell, the one that had filled the air moments before, was gone. The oppressive feeling lifted, and Jackson, our cute donkey, turned around, slowly trotting back toward the barn, as if nothing had ever happened. We stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the empty space where the creature had been. And then in the quiet I heard it, a soft whisper. But this time it wasn't from behind the fence. It was from inside the house. The whisper sent a jolt through my entire body. My husband must have heard it too, because his grip on my hand tightened, his fingers ice cold against mine. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. The whisper had come from inside the house. Slowly my husband turned his head toward the back door. It was wide open. We had left it closed, locked. I was sure of it for a long moment. Neither of us moved. The night outside felt eerily calm. Now almost too quiet. As if whatever had been behind the fence had simply disappeared into thin air. But something else, something unseen, had found its way inside. "We have to go in," my husband finally whispered. His voice was firm, but I could hear the hesitation in it. I wanted to say no. I wanted to turn around, grab Jackson, and leave everything behind. But this was our home, and whatever had just happened, we needed to face it hand in hand. We stepped toward the doorway. The air inside was still unmoving. The kitchen lights flickered weakly, their glow casting long, strange shadows across the walls. Nothing looked out of place, but something felt different. The house no longer felt like ours. Then the camera bleeped. We had forgotten it outside, still recording, but now the sound was coming from inside. The screen was lit up, sitting right there on the kitchen counter, as if someone or something had brought it in. My husband swallowed hard. "That's not possible." I reached for it, my hands shaking. The recording was still going. I hit stop. The little red light faded out. My breath came in short, uneven gasps as I glanced at my husband. "We're leaving," I said. Now he didn't argue. We grabbed our keys, our phones, nothing else. As we stepped outside, I turned back for one last look. And that's when I saw it, just for a second. A reflection in the kitchen window. Not ours. Not Jackson's. Something else, watching, waiting. I didn't stay to see more. I shut the door behind me, locking whatever it was inside. We drove away in silence. Jackson safe in the trailer behind us. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us looked back, and we never did. If this story resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us craft more engaging stories for you.